Let's use my big hammer. You all please stand. Pastor Phil Roop of Bethel Assembly of God is here to give our invocation.
Let's pray. The Apostle Paul reminds us in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 1, I urge then, first of all, that request, prayers, intercession, and thanksgiving be made for everyone, for kings and all those in authority, that we may live peaceful and quiet lives in all godliness and holiness. This is good and pleases God our Savior. Heavenly Father, I pray this evening for our national and state leaders, for our mayor and for our city council, for safety and protection for our firefighters and our police officers, and for the welfare of our city. Please grant us wisdom, since Proverbs reminds us that wisdom and understanding should be priorities in our lives. Guide the deliberations of this council this evening. And God, we thank you for a great summer for Cape Girardeau, for all the wonderful people. And remind us, God, of the sacrifice of your Son for mankind. We pray that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen and amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Welcome to the July 2nd, 2018 meeting of the City Council. We've changed the format of our meeting the last few months, where we have our study session and we go immediately into the regular session. And if we have any closed session, then we do that afterwards, so that it will maybe cause more people to turn out for a meeting. Although it's the issue usually that does that, not the format, right? But we're glad you're all here. First thing, we really have no action in the study session this evening. We'll get right into presentations, and the first is a real honor for me. The beautiful business property of the month. Get through all my stuff up here. Come down here in front.
Mayor, do you think 25 years ago, hauling this guy around, that you'd be giving him a award like this?
Never. Not old real property. They might say it. number of years ago, we had started this business. Used to haul this kid around the track meets. All of this kid around the track meets. What you've done with the property is fantastic. By the Broadway a little bit. Done a good job.
Trying to be a sweet addition to what's already began on Broadway and that corridor heading down to the river, because I feel like we're kind of an entrance to that area that's kind of started in 2003, and it's just been leaps and bounds since then. So I want to just kind of be a catalyst for that, and just, you know, obviously there's millions of dollars going on downtown right now. So we believe in it, and we have. I was born and raised here, and Councilmember Guard, and go way back. So we know what it was like when we were growing up, and it's definitely been an amazing run for our city and that downtown. So we're excited to be a part of it.
We appreciate your part of it.
Yeah.
Let's continue to
Yeah.
work. All right. Oh, we got Parks and Rec. Kind of one track mind. This is a big month, Miss Julia. You and your crew want to come up here.
Look at all the people that came to Parks and
Parks
Rec. We have much support we have.
I guarantee you, there are many, many, many more people than this that are involved with Parks and Rec and appreciate Parks and Rec month.
Could our advisory board members and staff come on up here as well? We did not bring Playmo. We had an idea the crowd was going to be a little bit large and the Playmo might not fit it, so apologies. We have a small attendance, but big hearts. Yeah, really. Well, last time Playmo came, these little kids were kind of small and they started crying.
Here's the proclamation. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Whereas our parks and recreation programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in the city of Cape Girardeau, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and a region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, the expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation in areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community. And whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve quality of air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural resources, our recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas the city of Cape Girardeau recognizes the benefits of parks and recreation derived from our rivers, parks, trails, and recreation resources. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Bob Fox, Mayor of the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, hereby declare July 2018 as Parks and Recreation Month.
Over here, please. Thanks, Miles. Thank you. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming for Parks and Recreation Month. I really appreciate it. This year's theme is a lifetime of discovery. And so the council have some items up there, which we provided them with, which will help you discover and share your discoveries all throughout the year, not just during Parks and Recreation Month. Of course, thank you to all of our advisory board members. And while we have loads of activities planned all year round, I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the key things that will be happening in July. We just initiated today Parks Rock scavenger hunts, where we have hidden rocks in parks. We hide 3 each week, and if you find them, you can enter Cape Splash for free. Look on our Facebook page, and I'll give some more clues about that one. Wednesday, of course, is a big day. We hope to see everybody at Arena Park or around Arena Park. We'll have our fireworks display, but we'll also celebrate the founding of our nation and also respect those that have served and serve and will serve in our military, along with recognizing a local citizen for our Spirit of the America War through the Southeast Missourian. Then on Friday, we have a brand new event called Pop-Up Movie Nights. That's going to be at Kapaha at the Dan Cotner Amphitheater. We will do a movie every Friday in July, and that's going to be a lot of fun. We're co-sponsoring it with the Arts Council, which makes it fun. They're bringing food trucks, and we've got games, and that'll all start about 8 o'clock, and then the movie will start at 9. And Friday's movie is Sing. And then Parks and Rec Day is next Wednesday, July 11th from 11 to 3. That's a big fun day. You can bring the kids and have fun at Osage. And then, of course, the rest of the month, we've got our Kapaha Classic, our run that's been going on for 31 years, our Adult Beach Bash at Splash, which is always really popular, red, white, and blue, yoga on the riverfront, and so much more. So while there's truly so much to discover, we want you to have fun in July, but have fun with Parks and Rec year round. So thank you very much. Thanks,
Now I've got a real special proclamation. Betty Martin. We didn't know we were going to do this originally.
No.
Betty has been director of the Cape Public Library since 1997. That's a long time. When you think of the changes that have happened in that library, she was here when we constructed the new library, and has had a wonderful board. And the library has been a great, great resource for all of Cape Girardeau, not just the city, but the whole area. And we appreciate what you've done, your expertise.
Thank you.
And the proclamation reads,
Okay.
whereas Elizabeth Betty Martin began her career at the Cape Girardeau Public Library on August 29, 1994, as the Adult Services Coordinator for the Cape Girardeau Public Library. And whereas a native of Boston, Betty earned her bachelor's degree at the University of Connecticut, master's degree in library science at Southern Connecticut State University. And whereas Betty began her career as a reference librarian at the Cheshire Public Library and soon became head of children's services at the Wallingford Public Library in Connecticut. In 1992, she became regional youth services librarian at the St. Louis Public Library, where she was also named one of the library's outstanding women employees before moving to Cape Girardeau and becoming our adult services coordinator. Whereas gaining praise for increasing adult programs and the library's visibility in the community, on June 1st, 1997, Betty was chosen by the Public Library Board of Trustees to serve as its new director. Whereas upon becoming director, she strived to keep the library progressive technologically, made the library catalog available online outside the library under Betty's direction. The public library underwent 2 renovation projects, receiving a facelift in October of 1999. The library underwent restroom renovations, reading and meeting room updates, and new carpets and paint. And whereas in 2007, voters of the Municipal Library District of Cape Girardeau approved funding to build and equip a new state-of-the-art destination library. On October 23rd, 2007, Cape Girardeau Public Library moved to its temporary location on South Broadway. And in May 2009, opened a new 40,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility, which operates with an annual operating budget of approximately $1.9 million and includes a collection of 125,960 print materials, 15,659 audiovisual materials, 97 print magazine prescriptions, 34,634 ebooks through a consortium, and an additional 1,278 library-owned ebooks, 6,687 e-audio materials through a consortium, 2 telescopes, and 16 Wi-Fi hotspots. The library hosts more than 1,100 programs annually, which are enjoyed by more than 34,000 program participants. And whereas Betty Martin is retiring after serving the Cape Girardeau community for 24 years, now therefore be it resolved that I, Bob Fox, Mayor of the City of Cape Girardeau, do hereby honor Elizabeth E. Martin for her leadership, dedication, and contributions to the Cape Girardeau community, and extend the council's best wishes for her success and happiness.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Communications and reports. Council members, anything?
I'd like to report that I welcome the Elks, not Elks.
Eagles.
I get in trouble for that. Eagles Convention. Boy, would I get in trouble for that. Eagles Convention to Cape Girardeau. And I might add, this is the second year in a row they've held their state convention in Cape Girardeau, which I think says a lot for what the local Eagles do, and drawing that crowd from across the state. And believe me, it was well represented. There was a lot of people there. So this is just a continuing trend of us attracting conventions to Cape Girardeau, and I think that bodes well for Cape Girardeau. I'd also like to say that in the last couple of days, I've been a little busy. If there's anybody in the audience that I didn't get back to you on the phone or answer your email about things that are before us, I apologize, and I've just been tied up with, or less, not maybe I wasn't tied up, at any rate, tied up with some other things. I had air conditioning issues. I had a major computer malfunction, and I was dealing with the wizard who handles that. And that all happened in the last 48 hours. So I apologize if you didn't get back to you before tonight's meeting. That's all.
Good too. I just mentioned, since we had our last meeting, we've buried two good ambassadors, what I would call great ambassadors to Cape Girardeau, with the passing of Marcellus Jones, and also a dear friend of mine, Freck Shivelbein. And so it's been a tough month we've had in Cape. So I want to keep their families in our thoughts and prayers.
Thanks, Robbie. Good comments. Anybody else? I attended the SIMPO, Southeast Missouri Metropolitan Planning Organization Board meeting, and was asked, along with Scott, to talk to our Leadership Cape program and on policy development and how policy occurs. And that was it's a great program. Thanks to the Glens, they run the show for that thing, and the chamber and John. It's a great program for developing young leaders in the city of Cape, and they get a taste of everything. And they had a mock council meeting and handled some issues. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to stay around for that. I have to talk to you about how that went later. I'm anxious to hear. The only other thing I would say is that this is 4th of July week, and I encourage you and your families to be careful. Fireworks are dangerous. We have accidents every year. So please be careful and with those around you, and have a great 4th of July holiday. Molly?
Yes, I just also like to reiterate in observance of the 4th of July, City Hall and other administrative offices will be closed. Of course, fire and police will be on duty and will be responding to any issues that we may have over the holidays. So please be careful so we don't keep them incredibly busy. I'd also like to ask Bruce Loy to come up and give a quick update on our SkyWest numbers out at the Cape Girardeau Regional Airport.
I'll make this really quick because I'm giving a more thorough report in 2 weeks. But just wanted you to notice that we just got these are tentative numbers, but when they're tentative, they're usually pretty solid. They get close to my estimates, so they got but they're showing 855 boardings for the month of June. And I went back through the records, and especially for the month of June, you got to go back to the 1990s unless I've missed something. But definitely 2002 was the last month that we got into any month, last year that we got into any kind of records where we had monthly boardings of this nature. And that's when we were here with American Connection. So I'm really happy. Everything's heading the right direction. It continues to grow, as you can see from the graph that I handed out. And I appreciate your all support. And really, that's what I wanted to mention tonight. Just let you know it's everything going very well.
And Mr. Loy will be back at our next council meeting to give a more detailed update on the efforts that he and others have made to grow our numbers through the new
Right.
airline.
We'll get
So
more to the marketing and that sort of thing. But I
Starting to pay off some.
I'm sorry.
Some of the marketing.
It's all working. We've still got, we just contracted on the billboards this last week. So there's a few billboards that are going to go up, a couple at least. And, but you won't see those for another week or so. We're doing even more and more. So
It's good news.
thanks.
Thank you, Bruce.
I also forgot to mention that our city does have a great 4th of July celebration out at Arena Park. That evening, the municipal band will be there playing patriotic music, which is neat. The Missourian's going to present the Spirit of America Award, and then the fireworks are there. And last year it was dynamite. So hopefully we'll have great weather. Maybe it'll cool off a little bit, and we have no rain, and everything will go off just perfect. So you're invited to that also. I forgot to mention that. Is there anybody here this evening to appear before the council for any item that is not on the agenda? Not on the agenda. I didn't think so. We'll now go into our regular session. I will call the order of this meeting, and we'll have a roll call.
Ryan Eskins,
Here?
Bob Fox,
Here.
Robbie Guard,
Here.
Victor Gunn. Here. Stacy Kinder.
Here.
Shelley Moore.
Here.
Dan Presson.
Here.
I did not review the agenda tonight because it's kind of simple. We'll go right into our public hearings. First, I'll need a motion to adopt the agenda.
So
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Guard, second by Mr. Gunn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's been adopted. We have a public hearing tonight. Consider a request to rezone property at the southwest corner of Hopper Road and Old Hopper Road from R1 Single Family Suburban Residential District to R3 High Density Single Family Residential District. This is item number 6 in our agenda. The only new ordinance down there. And after the public hearing, we will take up that ordinance. I'm going to get this out of the way. Is that okay?
Yes.
I feel like I'm looking right at it. A few comments about our public hearing. The council's decision on rezoning this evening pertains to the land uses allowed. Items such as ingress, egress, stormwater, street layout will be addressed in the future when this project begins. R3 zoning is a single-family district that allows single-family detached homes, duplexes, and townhomes. It does not allow apartments, as some believe. I know all of us have received numerous letters and communications about all the big apartments they're going to build. That is not allowed in R3. Examples of R3 zone properties include the first 5 single-family houses on the south side of Beaver Creek Drive off of Mount Auburn, Lexington Place subdivision duplexes on Minutemen Way, Patriot, and Paul Revere, which are adjacent to an R1 single-family houses. The duplexes off Baldwin Drive, Autumn Leaf, Summerfield, and Winterfield. Several protest petitions were received. However, the 30% buffer acreage was not met, and therefore a supermajority vote of the council is not required. Each person will have 3 minutes to make a statement. I want you to please speak only if you have something new to add. It's kind of redundant for people to get up and say the same thing over and over and over. You have the opportunity to raise your hand in agreement, or I don't care if you clap and make noise. That's fine, just for support. So this public hearing is now in session. And do I have anybody who wants to comment in the public hearing? If you would, please state your name and address.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm Brandon Williams. I live at 3208 Lakewood Drive, and I'm the developer of the 55 acres at the corner of Hopper and New Hopper and Old Hopper. Now, this tract is 55 acres, and we're asking 18 acres of it to be rezoned to R3. The rest of it, we're going to have about the first 21 acres when you come into it, it's going to be left R1. And then the other part, we don't know what we're going to do with yet. But it's only a third or less than a third of it is going to be R3. Now, what I want to do with this, if it does pass to R3, is do a development like behind the mall called the Villas of West Park. It's a 55 and older community, attached houses, and all the units will look the same. They'll all have the same exteriors, colors and all that, and all the exterior maintenance will be done by one person, which the people that live there will pay an HOA fee for that. What we see in the trends in the building community is people that are empty nesters, what I call them, 55 and older. They don't have kids. They might have another house in Florida or Colorado, and they want to move into something where they don't have to take care of any maintenance on the outside. So if they leave, they don't have to worry about getting the grass cut. And 30% of the new home buyers in the United States are empty nesters, people that are retiring or close to retirement or retired. And I think there's a lot of pent-up demand in Cape for this project, because I finished the development behind the mall after the empty lots went back to the bank, and we sold that out in about 1.5 years. So I've been looking for some land to do that on, and this meets all the criteria. It's close to all the shopping. It's close to the hospitals and all that. So that's what we're wanting to do with this land.
Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. If your request is denied, what's your plan for the property if it continues to stay R1?
I guess we'll build houses. It's going to get developed.
Yeah, you'll build houses similar to the other 21 acres, or will they be, it's just.
Now, if it doesn't get approved, then I'll have to look at that, because I already have a subdivision on Perryville Road that we're building $300,000 houses.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's enough demand for 155, because that's what we feel we can get there if it stays R1.
Right.
155 single family units. So then I'm not going to build $400,000 houses, because that's just too risky with the market we're in. So then we would probably have to go to an entry level house, in which there's probably some pent-up demand for that.
Mm-hmm.
But then that's going to put a lot of stress on the school there that everybody's concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
At least if we do this 17 acres or 18 acres as 55 and older, there's no stress on the school, because these people don't have kids. Their kids are gone. So, but it is going to get developed.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Brandon.
All right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Mike's up here.
All right, public notice said 5 minutes, but I'll try to talk really fast. My name is Teresa Wilkie. I live at 3726 Old Hopper Road. I'm the owner of property within 185 feet of the 58.5-acre parcel of land identified as the southwest corner of Hopper and Old Hopper Road. I'm alarmed by the swift pace, lack of transparency, and potential harm of this proposed zoning amendment. I was initially encouraged to learn that the Planning and Zoning Commission was responsive to the voices of my neighbors in Twin Lakes, just on the other side of the highway, when they expressed concern for a very similar development in March of last year. I'm happy that the commission recommended denying that rezoning request after hearing from residents who worry that the higher density residential zoning would increase traffic congestion, pose a traffic safety problem, and hurt residential property values. As you can imagine, we in the neighborhood are even more concerned that the proposed higher density residential zoning plus the anticipated commercial zoning, which was hinted at during the Planning and Zoning Commission, would represent a similar burden and should receive equal scrutiny from the City Council. I live on Old Hopper Road, and I've understood that the small winding road that we have leading to our residential area is not conducive to walking or bicycling or heavy traffic. It's always been a trade-off that we do not have robust built infrastructure or higher density areas, and I've been happy to accept that trade-off. The request that comes before the City Council tonight meets all of the criteria of spot zoning, which is not aligned with best practices for development or city governance. The developer purchased a 55-acre parcel of land directly next to I-55 that is zoned R1. It's not the job of the city to dramatically and swiftly rezone properties to make them as profitable as possible to developers. Several residents expressed concern at the June 13th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I felt our voices were flatly ignored. I am not willing to trust that these safety issues concerns will be worked out after zoning for this development. For nearby property owners, the zoning process is our only opportunity to have a voice in this process. I want to know where the new streets are going to go that will be required to meet fire code for the R3 density of residences, how traffic might change on my street. The site plans need to be shared with the residents before approving any kind of rezoning amendment. In many municipalities, a developer would have to seek approval of the neighbors rather than requiring that neighbors inform themselves and submit notarized protest documents. The cost of thoughtful planning and traffic studies are surely less expensive than the cost to resolve problems after the fact. I have 2 daughters who will be new drivers on these roads. This is a sincere safety issue. Old Hopper Road is an extremely dangerous area to navigate as a pedestrian, cyclist, or driver as it is. There are already 2 separate large-scale residential developments going on, one on Hopper and one on Old Hopper. The last thing this area needs is a high-density residential zone to exacerbate public safety concerns and increase the risk of accidents or fatalities along this narrow roadway. Traffic safety is not an abstract concept to me. My younger sister had a vehicle accident on Old Hopper when she was 16 years old. She slid off the road due to mud that had gathered as a result of nearby construction. She was not speeding, but due to the lack of curb and the steep drop off on the side of the road, her small car plunged into the ditch and her face hit the steering wheel. She totaled her car and suffered a concussion. Luckily, her black eyes and facial bruising healed and she wasn't seriously injured. I have 2 daughters, 15 and 16, new drivers just like my sister was. The lack of concrete plans for new roadways, consideration of increased traffic volume concerns me. This is a real public health and safety issue. I know not everyone feels comfortable speaking formally in front of the council, so if anyone here has concerns or questions about the proposed rezoning amendment, could you please just raise your hand? At its core, this is a question of promoting one person's gain to the detriment of surrounding property owners. It deserves thoughtful consideration and needs coordinated planning, traffic studies, and infrastructure analysis. I hope the City Council will honor our trust in you to see the broader view and make a decision that reflects the good of all rather than the financial benefit of one individual. Traffic safety concerns need to be fully addressed before the zoning amendment is approved, or better yet, submitted as a planned development. This requires more time, public transparency, and investigation. I really appreciate this opportunity to express my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions of Teresa? If not,
Thanks.
anybody else?
My name is Gary Gaines. I live at 2971 Beaver Creek Drive, excuse me, here in Cape. My wife and I, my wife sitting there on the end, own the house at 3713 Old Hopper. It's right in the bend of the road at the top of the hill, and it's adjacent to the property being considered for rezoning. We've owned it for about 10 years. Our son lives in the house, and we're opposed to the zoning change. Some may know that after the zoning commission meeting, I wrote a letter to the editor expressing my frustration with the zoning commission for voting to change the zoning. Shortly after that, Mr. Glenn, the chairman of the zoning commission, wrote a letter expressing his frustration with me. I'd like to begin by apologizing to Mr. Glenn. I sincerely mean that. It was not my intent, not my purpose to upset him or belittle the commission in any way. I'm not the best letter writer in the world. It was my intent just to express my frustration at the zoning commission for voting to rezone the property next to our house. I also mentioned in my letter that the zoning commission is all white and all male, and Mr. Glenn took issue with that. And again, I apologize. I did not mean anything racist or sexist. I truly did not. I didn't even think of that until I read Mr. Glenn's letter, and I thought about it, and I saw how my comments could be mistaken, and I regret that. I do feel that the city of Cape would be well served to have more diversity on the zoning commission. My reason for saying what I did was that an all-white, all-male commission brings a limited perspective to the things that come before them. And I think if there was some diversity on the commission, some females, some people of color, that there would be a broader perspective brought to the issues, and maybe even more recognition of the need to protect existing neighborhoods. But we're here tonight to talk about the zoning change. I want to say one more thing about the zoning commission. Larry Dowdy's on the zoning commission, and I've known Larry since high school. We couldn't ask for a finer person. Larry and I are both from Dexter. We both worked for an engineer when we were in high school there at Dexter. We both went on to become engineers. Larry spent most of his career with the Little River Drainage District, and I spent most of mine with the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. I say this, and Larry's not paying me anything. I say this to emphasize that I have great respect for the people that serve on commissions. I know Larry personally. He's a good guy, and if he's any representative of the commission, then it's a great commission. And I apologize again for any comments that I made that were taken wrong. Regarding the zoning, I have researched this quite a bit on the internet, and I know that's dangerous, and I apologize, but I wanted to try to gather all the information I could before I came before you tonight. And it appears to me, based on what I've read and based on what I understand, that if you vote to change the zoning, we could go out and hire an attorney and fight it, but we would eventually lose. And I'm sorry for saying that, but that's where my research takes me. And I may be wrong. I'm not an attorney. I'm an engineer. I know some of these folks have done more research with me and can bring more legal issues to bear. But it appears to me that we would eventually lose because bottom line, the city has the authority to rezone property if they so choose. What I come before you tonight is maybe with a compromise. What I want to suggest is that you leave a strip of R1 next to the existing houses. When you change zoning right next to somebody's house, that's what creates uncertainty. That's what stirs emotions. I mean, anytime your neighborhood changes, it can create uncertainty. But when it's right next to your house, I mean, you buy a home, you live there, you make improvements, it becomes a long-term home. You wake up one morning and there's going to be significant change next to you. That's unsettling. That creates uncertainty. That stirs emotions. And I think that field is deep enough to have one strip of R1, 150 foot deep perhaps. I haven't discussed this with a developer, but then go to R3, then transition to commercial. Mr. Glenn suggested that Veterans Drive, as it's extended south, will probably be developed commercial. I don't know that. It's not to the north of Hopper. It might become more commercial as it goes south. But his suggestion was that the R3 would transition into the commercial. And I'll wind up. In conclusion, my desire is to leave it all R1. I would urge the council to leave it all R1. It's R1 in the whole area for hundreds, even thousands of feet. But if you choose to make it R3, you think that's the best for the city, please consider to leave a strip of R1 next to the existing houses. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for letting me go over the time a little.
Thank you, Mr. Gaines. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mayor, City Council. My name is Cheryl Essner. I live at 533 West Highland Drive, and I am the last house on that road and also the last of the property that Mr. Williams wants to make into R3 from R1. West Highland, if you've been on West Highland, is a small country road, a little lane. There's one access in and out, right? Which I think everybody is fine with. And the property to the south of what Mr. Williams proposes to make R3 is also R1, owned by, I believe it's John Hoffman. And that carries south, and there's a large, beautiful $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 houses that are off. I think it's Julie Drive, and I really don't think they're going to want that to be R3. So I'm thinking it might turn back into, stay R1. So we'll have R3 stuck right in the middle of R1. And my husband and I own 3.5 acres, which if we wanted to subdivide sometime, having R3 would drastically, change the character of our neighborhood. Not that we have to have, all those acres of trees behind us, of course you're going to change, and zone and we're going to have development, and the city wants to do that. However, if I love the idea about the R1, I had thought of that too. What I had asked the council was, the commission originally was to have a buffer zone. And apparently that's not in the ordinance, but I would like to see a buffer zone, if not a line of R1 houses, a line of trees or a privacy fence that goes all the way along West Highland, because the entire West Highland is supposed to now be zoned R3. And then everything around that R1. So if we could, try to maintain some of the character of the neighborhood. On both of the concerns I have, which is also increased traffic hazards and congestion, I did not see on the application that Mr. Williams addressed those. I know those questions were in the application form, so I don't know when he has to address those, but I too am highly, highly concerned about the access from West Highland and the access of Mr. Williams' property onto Old Hopper. I really don't think that development needs to go onto Old Hopper at all. And right now, that is the only access that is there. It is at the top of the road. It is over a 90-degree turn. It's more like a 100-degree turn. It is a blind access right now. And as you've already heard, it is ditches on both sides or actual properties. There's no shoulder. There's no curbs, there's no sidewalks. There's just a narrow lane that already I can't see. If I'm coming up Old Hopper and I want to make a left on West Highland, I have to get all the way up to the very top and then go real fast to try to get through there. Now, if you add another access of all these construction workers and trucks, and we've already got tremendous amount of time problems there. So I will finish, and I'm very concerned about the access and the characters of the neighborhood. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
I'm driving down.
I'm a property owner for many years at 3734 Old Hopper Road, which intersects with Old Hopper and New Hopper.
Would you identify yourself and your
Oh,
address, please?
excuse me, Deborah Mitchell
I know who you are,
Braxton.
but not everybody else does.
Deborah Mitchell Braxton. Dr. Fox used to be my dentist. Good dentist, by the way. I live at 3734 Old Hopper Road. I've lived there for years. And I have a couple of concerns. I concur with Miss Teresa. I don't mind developments as far as R1, but I do have a great concern having multiple housing units in that area. The street is not palatable. I try to walk every day and I have to jump over to the shoulder of the road because people do speed. The lighting's poor. I have a great concern where the deer are going to go. The deer are right across the street from me in the valley. And I want to know right across the street from where I live on the top of the hill, what's going to be zoned over in that area where the farmer is and the deers. And deers do come on the property. We're just pushing them completely out into the street. As the other lady talked about, when you go to Old Hopper, unless you all build a new street, it is highly dangerous to go around that curve. And many times we have to pray when the snow and ice comes that we don't go off in the ditch for real, because the deers do fly over the road when you're trying to drive. So I'm concerned because I just feel that a sign was put up at the corner of Hopper and New Hopper, because I walk every day and I saw the sign saying we were going to rezone commercial even. I think that's been off the table, correct? No commercial. Used to be going to be a church over there. That was a good thing. We need more churches. But I just would like to know what they're planning on building, and they need to do something about the streets, because the streets will not allow that type of traffic. God bless you all.
Anybody else?
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Mike Davey. I live at 3902 Anwood. Thank you all for your service. So this is my first meeting here. Won't be my last. I know, and I'm just as the concerns have shared with the roads and the condition. As I live in that area, and even with New Hopper Road coming in, and I was there during the entire construction of that, and I used to take the old Hopper Road to get out to Mount Auburn. It is. It's just about a dead even run to go from the stop signs at the intersection of the Hopper Road, the New Hopper Road, and the Old Hopper Road. Moving that access further down Old Hopper Road, it won't take long, and residents will soon figure out that it's just quicker to go out the Old Hopper Road, the black 2-lane road with the poor lighting and the no shoulders, and no surprise to us. But it surprises me that we'd consider that. Just in the sense that I know New Hopper Road was put in for a reason, and for very good reason. And it has alleviated a lot of that traffic off of the Old Hopper Road. Why would we go back to putting an access in that area that once again increased that traffic flow? The other element about this that I'm concerned about that just doesn't smell right to me is this was a May 22nd application of this year for this rezoning change. And it surprises me that it's traveled so fast to this point. And it makes me wonder what else is going on. And I'm not sure. And I know there's a lot of contention and a lot of curiosity here. And I'm sure y'all are much more aware of how these things normally travel. But it does seem strange to me. So thank you again for your service. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm Lonnie Hasty. I live at 3701 Old Hopper Road. You've all received communication from me. Maybe you haven't with your computer problems, especially that and your arm problem. I happen to be the first house that will be affected by that R3 property. And I would like to ask a question. You said they can only build townhouses. According to section 30-324, R3 high-density single-family residence, there's nearly 3 pages of options for R3 property. And Mr. Williams says he'll build townhouses similar to that. Nothing in this rezoning request guarantees to us, the adjacent property owners, that that's what will happen. If he gets down the road, that doesn't seem viable, and he decides to do something else. And according to my reading, I could have a 45-foot tall apartment complex right behind my backyard, and there can be 9 units on an acre. I have a 1,450 square foot house on a half acre. And with the driveway, it covers approximately half of that half acre. And so with that being said, I'm either completely wrong with what I'm looking at, or there could be something much more than townhouses on that piece of property. And I don't mean to dispute your comments, Mr. Mayor, but based on my reading, that's my understanding. And I did hear from Ms. Kinder, and I appreciate your response back from my email. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yes.
Is it correct that there will need to be new roads built through, can I see the map again, built through the part that looks to be not touched yet to meet fire code in order to have the R3? Will new city streets need to be built to access that R3?
Yes. The issue tonight is to whether to rezone the property to R3, which allows the single-family homes, townhomes, duplexes. If the rezoning is approved, then the developer would have to go through the subdivision planning process, which would determine where those new streets would be located, make sure the access is adequate to serve the number of dwelling units proposed, make sure there's adequate fire hydrants, all those development standards that are called for in our development regulations.
Where that, in front of that, I think Old Hopper Road and where that's listed.
There will be new subdivision streets to serve the R1 and R3 development if approved.
Any more comments?
May I ask another question?
Yes.
With all of those new streets, they still have to get out on Old Hopper Road or a small portion of the new Hopper Road to egress from that entire property at this point.
Well, go ahead.
You know, that is to be determined where the access points are located. It's potential that he could phase the development and wait for the new Veterans Memorial Drive and provide access that way as well. So all of that is to be worked out in the subdivision planning process.
Seems to me that ought to be worked out before it's voted to move it to R3.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
My name is Megan Andrews. My address is 192 Charter Road, Cape Girardeau, Missouri. I'm here to speak on behalf of the developer. So there were some questions that were brought up in regards to the Old Hopper and New Hopper Road. Whether this is R3 or whether this is R1, houses are going to be built on this property. So these concerns about these roads not having shoulders or these roads being dangerous, there are going to be houses built here regardless of whether it's R1 or R3. So I think some of those concerns aren't really a concern for the new development. It may just be concerns that are in that neighborhood right now. In regards to that, I believe, you know, with having New Hopper Road constructed, the city is doing what they can to help alleviate the best that they can. I think those road restrictions, again, we had talked about how there's going to be a Veterans Memorial Drive and some other things that are hopefully going to continue to help alleviate those driving concerns on those roads. I mean, it's Cape Girardeau, so there are old blacktop roads out there that are all over the city, not just in this area. But the concerns about, you know, having young drivers or driving late at night or walking, those concerns are concerns that they're voicing now. And there are going to be, and it is allowed right now for new houses to be built there. Additionally, they brought up some issues about spot zoning. This is not spot zoning. It's very clear that this, you would have to have an arbitrary reason that this is being zoned that way. It's not arbitrary. There's multiple places throughout Cape Girardeau where they have put up duplexes and multifamily housing because there's a need for it in the community. When we talk about the public, it's not just the public in this neighborhood, it's the whole city. It's what do we do for the citizens of the city of Cape Girardeau. There is a large community of people that are over 55 years old, and they're a large community that want to downsize. They've, you know, put their kids through college and now they want to travel and they want to do other things in order to do that. They're downsizing into duplexes. There are not a lot of duplexes and townhomes available right now for those purposes. These are owner occupied houses. So these are people that are going to own these. This isn't rentals. This isn't apartments. These are going to be sold to people that are going to live there, and it's going to be their home, and they're going to make sure that it's taken care of. And probably the concerns that are being voiced here would be concerns of those people in those houses. And so people are going to take care of that. They're going to want this to be a nice area. It's going to be a nice area. So I think the concerns with spot zoning, it's not, this isn't arbitrary. This happens all over Cape Girardeau. And when they're talking about, I think they talked about $300,000 and $400,000 houses. There's a beautiful condo townhouse subdivision off of Bloomfield Road that's right next to 300, 400, $500,000. I think there's even $1 million houses back there. And that condo subdivision has been there for years, and it has great residents, and there's never been a problem with that. Again, if you look at the villas behind West Park Mall, again, those villas look nice. They're a great subdivision. It's right across the street from multiple subdivisions of all different kinds of houses and property value. And it's done nothing to, decrease property value or increase traffic. All it's done is given an area in town that is close to amenities for people that are in that 55 and older. And again, another reason why this really benefits the city is if you build these townhomes versus R1 residential houses, you will probably more than likely not have children. So you're going to have houses that are giving and paying tax money to our school systems and our school district, and they're not sending their kids to our school district. That's an influx of money that's going to help provide these school activities and provide extra tax money to the city of Cape, to Parks and Recs, to everything. In conclusion, I think that you should really consider that this is a good change in whole for the city of Cape Girardeau. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you guys have questions? Is my time up? Do you guys have time to ask questions if you need to?
Anybody have any questions? Don't think so.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You can ask a question. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Hi. First question is, actually there's two. The first question is, this is the first I've heard of the 55 and older and probably no children. I'm wondering why we haven't heard that before. Second question is whether it's possible to have a buffer zone. Several of the commissioners said that their meetings that wasn't in the ordinance, but so I'm asking you about a buffer zone, if that's possible for the city council to approve something like that.
I don't know that we can require a buffer zone. That would be kind of up to the developer who developed it. It just depends on the developer and the development itself. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Linda Schill, and I live at 3718 Old Hopper Road. And I would like for you to consider the fact of whether the city, we brought this up a few minutes ago, I know we won't, but if you would consider, if you have the money, to fix the roads, to make them wider on Old Hopper Road. Also, Veterans Drive that comes into Hopper Road, will it be expanded? That's kind of a question I have. And if that road goes next to the highway, that could be an outlet for that area. But what we were under the impression at the meeting was that they weren't going to put that road through for a long time. And so the part for the businesses, that was turned down because that road there was no road there. Okay, our road is hardly a road. We really want you to take that into consideration of where they would bring it out. And also water pressure, also, utilities. When we first built out there on Old Hopper Road, we had terrible water pressure, and then they started putting more houses, and then they had to put whatever you put in to have better water pressure. Well, they're having all those new houses at the beginning of Old Hopper Road, that whole subdivision. Now, if they built that, those are things for the city also to consider, because you're talking about streets. Oh, yes, they're going to build their streets in their subdivision, but you're looking at the future of other utilities and other services that we now receive. We're going to have a huge drain on that. So I would like for you to think about that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Not only Old Hopper, there's Hardy Road, that's just as dangerous as Old Hopper, because as you go up that hill, you try to go around that curve, it's just as dangerous. And like I said, when you start building, I've never heard about 55 years and older either houses, but when you have all that traffic, you gotta have to do something about the streets. You're gonna need sidewalks, We're gonna need a safe zone for the neighbors to be able to have access to do the same thing we do. Because it's old Hopper dangerous, the deer fly across the road anytime. They do.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Is there an R2 zoning? It seems like I've heard so much about multiple families and duplexes being put onto this property. I'm just curious why R2 isn't a consideration, either from the request, from being less contentious, or then even from the city, as far as allowing and then settling some of the 45-foot tall, whatever the variances are between the R2 and the R3. Could you expound on some of those?
A couple clarifications, first of all, to go back to the previous speaker regarding the streets. First of all, Old Hopper Road between New Hopper and Mount Auburn is a Cape Special Road District street. It is not owned by the city. They did recently overlay it, but that is their responsibility to maintain. The portion of Coggy between New Hopper and Mount Auburn is a city street. We did originally have plans to improve that through our Transportation Trust Fund project, but it was abandoned at the request of residents in the area. That was some time ago. There are plans to extend Veterans Memorial Drive all the way along I-55 throughout the city of Cape Girardeau. However, that portion has not been planned. Those discussions will come up with our next iteration of Transportation Trust Fund 6, which is up for renewal in 2020. But there, I believe, are 2 sections left of Veterans Memorial Drive that are yet to be constructed, and that is one of them. What were the other questions? R2.
R2.
There is R2 district. I might ask our city planner, Ryan Shrimplin, to speak briefly on the different R1, R2, R3 zoning districts and what those differences are. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind.
R1 and R2 are the same district. It's just that R2 has a lesser lot area and lot width is intended for the smaller, older flats. It's also single family detached. It doesn't allow
According to the state of Missouri, is that the code that the city of Cape Girardeau uses as well as the Missouri? Yes, sir.
Right. I'm sorry. There was a bit of a dispute between regarding R3, if apartments are allowed or not, or what sizes. Can you clarify that?
Our code considers apartments to be multi-family dwelling units. Means you've got multiple dwelling units in the same building on the same lot. That is not allowed under the proposed R3 zoning. That would require a higher zoning district. It is allowed for townhouses, which we consider to be single family attached. It runs from the floor, the basement, all the way up to the bridge. So it's all one unit. It has to be on its own lot. That's what a townhouse is. That is allowed in our.
There was some mention of the development that was not approved and eventually, I think, withdrawn out by Twin Lakes. That was a R4, not R3, and there's a difference there. Any other questions? Any other comments?
I want to clarify. So you're saying that the city council does not have the authority to place any kind of restriction, request, requirement on this division other than so. When we're asking for buffer zones, there's some requests. You're giving us the impression the city council has no authority to impose any.
I don't.
If I'm understanding correctly.
It is a legislative approval, so the city council does have some discretion in that regard. Eric.
The issue here is the rezoning of the property, and in that circumstance, the question is whether the uses that are requested are appropriate for that particular property, appropriate, reasonable, and other things. One of the things the city council can do, there was a question about a buffer. It wouldn't happen necessarily in that way, but the city council could decide to rezone a portion of the property R3 and leave another portion of it as R2. In other words, rezoning a smaller portion of it and would effectively leave a border area there. That is something that city council could do legally. Whether they want to or not, of course, is up to the city council.
Yes, sir.
May I ask Mr. Strickland a question, please?
Yes.
Explain cluster subdivision.
Cluster subdivision is a subdivision that has the same number of units as what's allowed under the zoning, but it's concentrated in a certain property. The rest of it has to be dedicated open space, public or private. The overall density has to be the same. You can't see what's allowed under the zoning, but it allows the housing units to cluster a certain portion of the property. But the developer has, there's some unique features, something of the size that the developer wants to preserve, they can apply for a cluster subdivision.
But theoretically, he could put a cluster right there in that corner behind my house.
Any other comments? Any other questions?
Yes, I am, we are all talking about access and dangerous roads, and yet we keep hearing, well, that's a special road district. I don't know what that means, and I don't know if the city council, you're only worried about rezoning. We're worried about the other issues too. So how do we work together with the special road district?
So the city does have a relationship with the Cape Special Road District. We do interact with them, communicate with them when we have projects that are on their, adjoining their streets and whatnot. We have several streets within the city limits that are owned and maintained by the Cape Special Road District. So that is certainly something that's communicated throughout the development process. Anytime we have a project go through a subdivision plat like this, it goes through, we evaluate it for all of the things that you all have mentioned tonight: streets, utilities, infrastructure, sidewalks, lighting. We have development standards for all of those. And so when it goes through the development process, every department within the city evaluates the project, makes sure it meets all of our development standards, and is built accordingly.
Yes.
Molly, you're just talking about what's going on inside this stuff. All these other people are talking about all the things that are up to it, out of it, or else. And we have no guidelines that are going to, that special road district doesn't have any money. So maybe we.
Special Road District has a lot of money.
Well.
Over the years, a lot of roads that used to be in Special Road District in Cape Girardeau have been incorporated in the city, and they have the same budget, and they're spending less money on roads now than what they were. So they have a pretty good budget, and they have a pretty good, I understand they have a pretty good amount.
Have they been consulted?
We have contacted them, we've not heard back from them yet, we have asked them for, and where that really is relevant is during the subdivision phase.
Right, which is on the public parts and zoning.
They're all public meetings.
Any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, there's been a lot of discussion about spot zoning. Could we address that and put that to rest?
The considerations of the city council on any kind of a rezoning request, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, are whether the property is particularly suitable for the purposes and uses of the requested zoning, whether it's reasonable, and whether it's in reasonable conformity with the existing uses and value of the surrounding properties. If the particular property requested to be rezoned is particularly suitable for a particular use, and it is reasonable, and it is in conformity, reasonable conformity with the neighboring properties, then it is not a spot zoning. The issue is not that has to be exactly the same as the surrounding properties. It has to be in reasonable conformity. Will they work together? That is a legislative decision for the city council to make. Will they work together? Can they work together? That is your decision to make. But as long as that particular property, in your opinion, is those uses are reasonable, and they're in and that property is particularly suitable for those uses, then then it should not be considered to be a spot zoning. The classic examples of spot zoning are in an R1 zone, somebody decides, the city council decides in a residential lot to put an M2 zoning designation, completely different on a piece of property that's exactly like everything around it. That's the classic kind of case. Normally, the larger the tract, the less likely it is to be considered spot zoning. This is a pretty large size lot, and it just fits in with the rest of it that I don't personally think that it is a spot zoning issue. There are other factors for you to consider, but I don't think spot zoning is one of them.
Yes.
I've lived out.
Could you identify yourself, please? Come to the microphone.
Okay, I'm not a public speaker. So I'm not a public speaker, but I've lived out there.
Please identify yourself and give your address.
1003 Oak Ridge Court. I basically live like right adjacent to Deborah Mitchell Braxton. She's up on the hill. I'm right down, right beside the property. Okay, so now I forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, you were talking about the spot zoning. I've lived there for 25 years and we've had a couple other issues with the same property. You know, first it was whatever, and then it was the church. So this is my third time of coming. In the past, they've always said it was spot zoning and they just basically threw it out. So what is different now opposed to the spot zoning as like in the past 25 years? Has something changed?
I don't know whether it was ever considered spot zoning.
It was, because I went, and my husband also, he went to the meetings, and we remember the ladies that were selling the property originally. They were told it was spot zoning, blah, blah. So I just wondered what's changed.
I wasn't ever aware that there was any spot zoning there. Ryan, were you aware of that at all?
Well, they didn't change it because they said it would. Well, there's been two other issues with the same piece of property. Like the last one was the church. Yeah, but then there was one before that. But we came to these meetings and they threw it out because for spot zoning. So I just wonder what's changed.
I don't know what they were intending to do 25 plus years ago, but I'm just not aware of it. And I don't know that anybody here is aware of it.
Okay, well, it just seems like.
But it is not considered spot zoning when you've got a piece of property this large that's being developed pretty closely to what the other adjacent properties are. It's residential.
Okay, well, I just hope you guys all take into consideration, everyone who lives out there is basically probably against it. I mean, everyone I've talked to, everyone's against it, and we've all lived there, we've invested on it, and I don't know, it just doesn't seem right to not care what we say. So anyway, like I said, I'm not a public talker. I'm the only person who ever passed speech class without ever giving a speech. So I just happen to be. So I know it's hard for me to talk in public, but I think it's a very important. And it just seems like something's different now than in the past years. So anyway, that's all that I have
Okay.
to say.
Thank you for being brave.
Okay, thank you.
Miss Linda?
It was the niche sister?
Yes, that was who
Yes.
owned it
Did
originally.
you mention, okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry if you already said that.
Yeah, I didn't say it. I forgot
And
what-
they were denied because there wasn't adequate road access.
Right.
And this is what it was. The road hasn't changed. No, got worse. I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of that at all, as far as any history goes. Anybody else? I will say that, there was? Yes, sir. She gonna let you speak, Tom?
Yes, she will. Mr. Mayor, I believe she will, but Mr. Mayor and council members, my name is Tom Schill, 3718 Old Hopper Road, and I'll make this very brief, but what we're all opposed to are two key words: high density. all I have.
Okay. Anybody else? If not, the public hearing is now closed. We have an ordinance to consider relating this public hearing. It is Bill number 1890, an ordinance amending Chapter 30 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cape Girardeau, Missouri by changing the zoning of property located at the southwest corner of Hopper Road and Old Hopper Road in the city and county of Cape Girardeau, Missouri, from R1 to R3. First reading. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion been made. Do I hear a second? No second? No motion.
Okay.
If that's the case, the motion would fail for lack of a second.
For lack of a second.
And the ordinance as well.
Right. I have a few comments. This is not going to be rezoned R3 according to this, what's happened this evening. That is not your answer. Because now you're going to have an R1 development with probably smaller lots, more houses, cheaper houses, which will deflate your property values. The R1 development that was planned had larger lots. There were going to be larger, more expensive homes. The R3 development, granted, it's called high density, but with duplexes and retired people and a planned development with all the things that the developer had planned, an activity center, a fitness room. I think what's happened here tonight is going to be a detriment to your neighborhood. You're going to have more traffic. You're going to have younger kids living in smaller houses. And it's going to be more of a strain on the schools. It's just what you did not want. What you did not want. You want a development that's going to have nice homes, is going to raise your property values. It's going to be developed no matter what. And I understood, if I lived out there next to a place where the deer run and it's been a farm and it's been land, initially I would not want to see it developed either. But it's a fact of life. It's R1 and it will be developed. You cannot stop that. The city cannot stop that as long as the development meets the codes. So I hope that council will think about this, the city will think about this, and you all will think about this. Because it's going to be a detriment. Yes.
I think you're just missing the whole point.
No, I'm not missing the point.
I disagree with you. The thing is, I wasn't concerned about whether it's R1 or that didn't matter. My concern was you had the cart before the horse. I think the streets have to be assessed first and plans made for that kind of development, both water, power, sewer.
That will all be done as the developer presents his plans.
Is comments, no contractual arrangements whatsoever. So potential is there. I'm saying the city, in my opinion, is getting the cart before the horse. I think the study should be on the infrastructure first and then the development.
The city can't do that. You can't require a developer to have a planned development. It's not, the city cannot do that. You cannot require planned developments for every development that occurs in a city. Yes, Teresa?
I just wanted to, for me, coming new to this, I would just like to see developers more transparently. I think that would solve a lot of this. I think our unknowns was what made us fearful. And I don't doubt that those implications might be the case. Had we had maybe the city can encourage that when developers want to do this, go to the residents, have a meeting, do some, that. If that is best practices in other communities.
Some developers do that, some don't. This particular developer does not like to do that and will not do that.
You can make the request. That's all I'm asking.
Jim?
My name is Jim Shandy. I live at 3702 Old Hopper Road, right on that dangerous curve. And people go around the corner and wind up with their rear end of the car right against my front door.
I can see where that might happen.
This afternoon, I reviewed the application for developers. And there's 4 questions on that. And one of them is traffic congestion, and one is other development plans, and all the rest. I was told, we don't have to address that. That's not the issue. The issue is we're just gonna rezone something to R3. And over in 3302, I think it is, he can do anything he wants to do. Except if he gets a permit, right? To do, no matter what he comes up with, but that has to be decided. So you're gonna have a lot of city council meetings if you approve that. Now, I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it is gonna be rezoned in years to come on that. But a lot of us have a lot invested in our home.
I understand
That's why
that.
we went there in the first place.
I
And a
understand
quiet, a place where we could have some seclusion and some enjoyment without a lot of traffic going by. I can hardly go to my mailbox. Where somebody comes out from Highland or turns into Highland, or turns down the other way, goes into Highland, turns into Highland, like that. And I'm just like I was on Edgewood 30 years ago, over there. I couldn't have a dog because I'd get run over. So I don't know the answer either, but that application, I don't understand why you can have a master plan, whatever that means, and I fully intend, I'm interested to discover that. I'd like to see what that master plan is. I'm not educated at all. But I was told, you don't ask that question. He doesn't have to address it himself. He doesn't say, I project the traffic's gonna be, or anything else, fire department, school, or anything else. All he does is he just comes around and he just finds a piece of land that looks, that's gonna be really good, man. That is really, really a good investment. I read a magazine article and it said that's a common thing, folks. We're all baby boomers on there. Our kids are gonna be gone.
Okay, thanks, Jim.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you.
Yes.
If I could just make a comment, since I was the one that made the failed motion, as to my reasoning for making the motion, it was much to what you said. My concern, and I know this isn't going to make anyone feel better about the fact that I made the motion, is the level and the quality and the cost and the size of the homes that would have been, that will be built with it being R1. I know there's going to be contention about that, and we'll see what happens, but that was my reasoning for making the motion.
Eric, put me down as abstention due to financial conflict of interest on this whole thing, please. I think you knew that already.
We'll make a notation in the minutes.
Thank you.
I think that issue is over for now.
Bob, can I make
Yes?
a question? I mean, this whole issue has brought up a lot of different issues, and especially since I'm new on the council, it's been a real learning experience. And one issue for me is this whole situation of Old Hopper Road being a special road, district road. Just wondering if sometime in the future we can, I don't know what this looks like, but have some kind of conversation about the fact that Old Hopper Road is a road that is not within our control. It is being developed around. There's obviously huge concern about it right now, short of more development. And so my questions, I've had a lot of questions in my mind about what that looks like in the future and the planning that should or should not, go in from the city at this point, looking at that road. So.
We do have roads within our community that don't fall under our jurisdiction. MoDOT obviously has a lot of roadways throughout our community, Cape Special. We work with those entities. When we have developments, we coordinate with those different organizations to make sure that everything's coordinated. With that being said, there is a possibility in the future at some point in time, that Old Hopper Road may become the city's, but those are discussions for the future.
Yeah, and do they come up only when there's an issue like this, or is it, does it come up with like just street planning, city planning?
There are different things that might prompt those discussions, but we can, when we talked about having a special study session on transportation issues, we can go into some of the detail on those type of items.
Thank you.
I have asked staff that in the future, and you're probably thinking about August sometime, would they have a special study session on streets? Because I know that's a big issue with everybody in the community, with the potholes and the breakdown and the maintenance. And staff has a definitive process that they use to grade streets. They use to figure out what they're going to repair first and when. Steve, they've got a chart that's laid out when the street was built and the expected life expectancy and the whole thing. It's an amazing process because I've seen it. And we have some new council members, and I think it's appropriate that we review that later on and go through it so they know. At the same time, I think it would be appropriate to have a little discussion about those streets within our city that we don't maintain. I mean, how many of those streets are special road district? Where are they? What's the future plan for those? And
what do we decide to take over?
what do we decide to take over? We decide to take them over. It's a big expense on the city's part, and yet the Cape Special Road District still collects taxes on it. So it's an issue that we need to address, and it will be done.
I expect all of you at their meeting next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just one more. If I had known that a retirement community was planned and that there would be a fitness center, and a pool and whatever else, green spaces and all that, then I wouldn't have been so vocal, so against this development. What I read into it was exactly what the planning commission told us, was that once it is rezoned, anything goes on that sheet.
Right.
What's R3, including 3-story buildings. They're not called ones, but they're 3 stories. And so, we didn't know any of this.
Well, having known the developer a good while, I know he builds very quality houses and he does what he says he's going to do. We weren't, as a council, even aware of all the plans because he's kind of closed-lipped and doesn't say a lot of that stuff, and he doesn't have to say that stuff. But at the same time, I understand your concerns. Tom, do you have a question?
Well, a comment that was made at the planning and zoning hearing about the traffic issue. The Collins Mill development on the old Collins family farm
Right.
property. I believe there's supposed to be 40-some.
41, I think.
Okay, going in there, and the comment was, okay, times 2 cars, what, that's 82.
Right.
Okay, how many units are going in the originally planned for the high density area?
I cannot remember offhand.
You take that times 2, that's still maybe 200
Might be.
vehicles on the road.
And you've also got the R1 that you could add to that. But at the same time,
So there's
there was, Scott, the city manager, looked at the number of homes in the area, looked at the number of homes being developed in Collins Mill, looked at the number of homes and townhomes to be developed in this development. And you look at Old Hopper Road, what's capacity it was built for, and it's still less than 50%, even if everybody's driving at the same time. And that does not happen very often.
I did make a call with the gentleman last week at State Special Road District. He was aware of the development. He made a comment and said, I have no more influence with the city council than you did. I mean, you're going to do what you want to do. But he said he doesn't want to see that much traffic on the road that they maintain.
Well, he probably doesn't. All right, thank you all very much. We will move on with our meeting. I had asked earlier if there were appearances regarding items on the agenda. We do have another item on our agenda in other business this evening regarding a liquor license. And I'll wait for those comments when we take that up instead of doing them now. So we will go on our agenda with the consent agenda. Eric.
Bill number 18-87, an ordinance approving the record plat of West End Place Third Edition, ordinance approving the record plat of West End Place Third Edition. Bill number 18-88, an ordinance appropriating funds for operating expenditures, capital expenditures, debt service expenditures, and transfers for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018 in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. An ordinance appropriating funds for operating expenditures, capital expenditures, debt service expenditures, and transfers for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018 in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. Number 18-89, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a license and indemnity agreement with H&F Holdings LLC in the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
You have the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Gunn. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We've already taken up 6. There are no appointments. We have other business this evening, which is appeal of the Board of Adjustments decision regarding a liquor license request for consent by Cape Core DBA, the outlet for property located at 341 South Spring Street. And I will give you a little background. On June 7th, 2018, the Board of Adjustment denied a liquor license request for consent by Cape Corp DBA, the outlet for property located at 341 South Spring Street. The board's decision only addresses whether or not a liquor license should be granted on an establishment within 200 feet of a church, school, or other building regularly used as a place of religious worship, unless written consent is first obtained from the Board of Adjustment. In this case, the outlet is within 200 feet of the Salvation Army. Cape Corp submitted an appeal to the board's decision as allowed by city code. The council may either affirm, uphold, or reverse the board's decision to deny consent. If the council affirms the board decision, the liquor license will be denied. If the council reverses the board's decision, the liquor license application will continue as an administrative review process in accordance with the city code. Do I have anybody here from the appeal process? Yes.
Good evening. My name's Adam Gahn. Can everyone hear me okay?
What was your last name?
Gahn, G-O-H-N. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, perfect. My address is 1929 West Cape Rock, and this evening I want to talk to you in 2 separate capacities. First and foremost, I'm the attorney for Mr. Raza, who is the proprietor of Cape Corp DBA, the outlet. I believe you got some correspondence from me concerning this appeal, and I trust that everyone's had time to read that and review it thoroughly. But then secondly, as a Cape resident, a business owner, and a constituent, briefly, I'm not going to go into the specifics of the appeal process. I think that you've gone through and pretty thoroughly discussed each of the different criteria that the board, we think, made incorrectly. But what I would like to do is I'd like to highlight just a few kind of the themes of the appeal process here. And before we get into that, I'd like to just thank everybody for getting this on on the agenda so quickly, although admittedly, I didn't know it was happening this evening, so I read that in Missouri. So first and foremost, we believe that you should reverse the Board of Adjustment's decision concerning the consent for Mr. Ross's liquor license for a few reasons. First and foremost, it imposes an inappropriate duty on a private business owner. There's no question that there are some issues in this particular stretch of road. But what the Board of Adjustment has done by withholding consent for Mr. Ross's liquor license application is it's imposed a duty on him to take care of things that are beyond his control and that are existing outside the scope of his particular property. All the indications in the minutes of the Board of Adjustment say that Mr. Raza has indeed made improvements to the property since he's taken possession. He has cleaned it up. He's made structural improvements. He's put in security cameras that are routinely used by the police department when they're investigating these crimes that are allegedly being committed in the property. So what the board has done by citing all of this crime that's happening kind of around Mr. Raza's property is it's punishing him for the actions of other individuals within that he doesn't have any control over. Secondly, we don't think that the board's decision to withhold consent is in line with the majority of the constituents in the area. If you looked at the Board of Adjustment's meeting minutes, there were more than twice the number of petitioners that submitted a petition in favor of granting Mr. Raza his liquor license as those that opposed it. The exact count will be 360 signatures in support of Mr. Raza being granted another liquor license to 158 opposed. So obviously, we think that the board's decision goes against the basics of what we think of as democracy and fair play. Third, the board's decision not to renew his license is effectively going to close Mr. Raza's store. As I laid out in some detail on the appeal to you, approximately 50% of Mr. Raza's gross profits come from selling beer and wine. I don't know about any of you, but I certainly couldn't take a 50% pay cut and still be able to keep doors open. Mr. Raza is here today, and he'd be happy to tell you about as he doesn't maintain his liquor license, he's going to close in 2 months. And not only will the lost sales force him to close, but the approximately 40% restocking fee that he's had to pay to suppliers, as well as the leasehold that he's currently in, that he'd still be responsible for legally. We don't think that that's something then that the board really gave the appropriate weight to. We don't know where the board got their numbers, but they found somehow that it wouldn't impose an undue hardship financially on the piece of property if consent was withheld. And lastly, we're not here to dispute that there are problems in that stretch of town. We think that those problems have existed long before he took possession of this building, and we think that those problems will probably continue after. But what this won't do, what withholding a liquor license from this person will not do, is it won't address the problem. What it will likely do is shift the problem across the street, because there is another very similar business directly across the street from Mr. Raza. Mr. Raza, by all indications, is a fairly model business owner. He's cooperative with the police. He calls the police when he observes crime. That's what you want a business owner to do in this area. You want them, when they see something bad happen, they call the police. In fact, over the past year, approximately 25% of the calls that were received by KPD that were serviced at that particular location were from Mr. Raza and his staff. He's done trainings for his employees not to serve people that are loitering. He's tried to shoo them off of his property when he can, but he can't be expected to police the entire area just by himself. What he is asking for today is he's asking you to reverse the Board of Adjustment's decision to withhold consent on his liquor license. And we think that that's the right thing to do. A vote in favor of reversing the Board of Adjustment's decision is a vote in support of small business. It's a vote in support of a small business owner that's doing everything he can to improve not only his property, but the neighborhood around him. We think a vote in opposition to uphold the Board of Adjustment's withhold of consent imposes a wildly inappropriate standard on a business owner that no one can meet. That's all I have to say on behalf of Mr. Raza as his attorney. As a resident constituent of Ward 4 and as a business owner myself, I would support a similar institute in my neighborhood, and I hope very much that my business wouldn't be punished for the acts of any people walking down the street in front of my office. So that said, if there's any remaining time, I'd be happy to address any questions that the council has, and hopefully I can assuage some of your concerns.
Anybody have any questions? Okay.
I have a question concerning, I'm sorry, were you? Okay. Um, Property owner has owned this business for how long?
Approximately 2 years.
2 years. What, has there been a change in crimes, nuisance?
I don't think measurably there has been an increase in the times that he's called police. And I think that that's probably what you would want business owner to do if they see something wrong going on, that they call and report it so it can be addressed.
And there's been a liquor license at this the store has been in existence for how long?
Approximately 3 years, to my understanding.
Just 3 years.
It was vacant after it was, I think, the Don's 24,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was reopened, granted a liquor license at that point. Mr. Raza bought it approximately 2 years ago, was granted a liquor license then. By mistake, apparently they did not have a Board of Adjustment consent issue, and here we are today, when he went up to appeal, or when he went up to renew.
I'm just wondering if anyone from city or police department can characterize have there been any changes in that area or?
Oh, you going to say something?
It was my understanding that Mr. Raza bought this in June of 2017. So those are the statistics that I pulled for you to consider. In the last year, there have been 42 calls for service to that store. That's not really out of character for any convenience store in the city. And of the calls, of the known callers that we have, we don't always know who a caller is on every single call. But of the known callers, it is correct. It's about 25% of those calls have come from the store themselves. And they range from, on that location, from things of criminal trespass to intoxicated people. I think the most egregious crime that we had on there was somebody displayed a weapon in the parking lot to another individual in the parking lot.
At that particular area has always had a liquor store forever. And he just came in and opened up approximately 3 years ago. I got the information and I looked at it, and there haven't been any killings there. And it has been painted as though there has been violence of the utmost there. But the truth is, it hasn't. And he has kept up with, according to the police department, calling in and doing all the things that they have asked him to do to deter people being outside of his business. Now, I went and I investigated Salvation Army, and they said that they didn't start the petition and that they was not against him being in the area that he's in. And then they got some more information here that shows shootings and things like that, but that has not been there. Now, there's one time I heard, but nobody has never confirmed whether it's been shooting there. Okay, but they have got a petition. I've been getting calls left and right about this issue, and I feel like that it should have been investigated further versus just taking the license because somebody said that, you know, this or that. Because if it was you was in a business, if someone came up and they just said this about you and that about you without any kind of evidence, then you know what that feel like. I wouldn't want that for me. So I think that out of fairness, that it shouldn't be that his license was taken because of crimes. It's crimes all over the city. And there's alcohol being sold at restaurants downtown on Broadway. There's alcohol in Snooks. There's alcohol in Walmart. So if you was gonna be against him, and then you have no evidence of having any major issues other than what people have all the time, then I feel like any other business in Cape Girardeau should have the opportunity and a chance to be who they are and what they do. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, if you don't agree with alcohol being served or drinking, that's your issue and that's your prerogative. But when it comes down to a business, then you need to be fair about it. And So far, I haven't found anything that, I've got more calls and people calling me left and right, and they were saying that they didn't sign the petition. I went and looked at the petition, and it was more out of area signatures, and we even had out of the city of Cape Girardeau. I found issues with that because if the residents really wanted him out of the area, it seemed like it should have been more than 250 or 300 signatures. But you got 158 signatures, and almost over half of those are not from the ward, and the other portion is not from the city of Cape Girardeau, Missouri. So personally, I think that as from a business perspective, then they should have the same opportunity like anybody else that want to have a business in Cape. We all call the police department. We all depend upon them, and they did the same thing. Now, if they had ground to say that they had 17 murders or 3 murders or 2 murders or 1 murder, but they don't have none of that. It's just a business that is in Ward 2, and he just doing what he can do. Now, he hired the people of the community to work there, and the lady called me today, and she was telling me how that she don't have a car, and so when she get off from work, she got to go straight home, and then his store is open so that she can go in case she need something for breakfast for her kids. She can go there, and he's not closed, but all the other stores are. So I mean, it's just, you got to be fair about it. You just can't just make up something. Yes, the children, about the kids, the girls, the babies. And I'm 100% for babies, okay, 100%. But when I got that call, I went and I sat and I looked and I drove and I sat and I looked and I watched, and I didn't see any person that was at outlet messing with the kids. And I came back because nobody asked me to, but I wanted to know for myself. And I still didn't see anything. So the different things that have been brought up to use against him to say, let's shut him down. Well, we need to shut down every liquor store in Cape Girardeau because they all doing the same thing. Some may be better, more accepted by the citizens of Cape Girardeau, like going inside and drinking and instead of standing outside drinking. But in the fairness of business is business. And if he's following protocol by calling the police department and they're not, no more, the murders that are happening in Ward 2, I studied the paper that they sent me, and most of those murders are murders that was done in home or in the neighborhood, not in his business. So I'm asking that we reconsider because it's just a business, and it happened to be in Ward 2 and made a bigger issue out of it than it should be.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moore.
You will. You have to ask the mayor.
Yes.
Any other questions?
Not of you. He's got a question of the chief.
Chief, would you characterize the owner has been cooperative with law enforcement in the period we're talking about?
Yes, he has.
Thank you. And I would like to point out, reading the fact about whether it's within 200 feet of a church or a school, this business was in existence before he bought it. Whether he knew it was or it wasn't, it was actually serving alcohol at that time, regardless of the nature of the neighborhood. And he bought it probably in good faith, thinking that he was going to continue to do that. And then this issue arose. So I just wanted to point that out. But I want to make sure he's cooperating with law enforcement, and that's the most we can ask from all of our citizens. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. I'm Lieutenant Matt Jagonia. I'm the pastor of the Salvation Army. So I just wanted to come and make sure everyone knew we do not want the outlet to close. We understand they are a business, but the Salvation Army cannot support the sale of alcohol. I agree with Councilwoman Shelley. If I could shut down the sale of alcohol in Cape Girardeau, I would. The Salvation Army has an official position when it comes to the sale of alcohol. We believe there is in existence a direct connection between the incidence of addiction and the easy availability of alcoholic beverages, and in the increasing social acceptance of their consumption. We, the Salvation Army, therefore active in supporting legislation likely to reduce the consumption of alcohol. That's what we're really talking about, is what does the legislation say? Legislation says they're within 200 feet of our church. We should support that legislation. So that's the Salvation Army stance on it. We never, ever have gone out and said we want them to close. Right? We understand they're a good business. We appreciate that. They're good neighbors. But we support the legislation of not having liquor licenses. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Carolyn Irvin Mobley. I live at 2534 Drive. I volunteer for Stop Needless Acts of Violence, Please, or SNAP. Last year on November 20th, may I approach?
Yes.
We brought you all this picture. It was taken after the children at the Salvation Army told us that drunkards were harassing them. So we went out and took that picture to confirm their concerns. The papers are sliding. So we are requesting that the liquor license at 341 South Sprigg be revoked. And I am speaking on behalf of the children who exit their school buses in the vicinity of 341 South Sprigg. The fact is, they are still being harassed and are afraid of drunken loiters. I am also speaking to you because the families are too traumatized to address you.
It's not on that property.
The background on why SNAP is here. August 2017, at SNAP's monthly meeting at the Salvation Army Christian Church, a church pew filled with children told us about the drunkards harassing them. One girl asked if she could hit them to defend herself. We tell our children when we see something wrong, tell a parent, tell an adult, tell a teacher, tell someone you trust. The children told us, and we are their voice tonight. In addition, one SNAP volunteer was harassed at our new office at 402 South Sprigg. SNAP is planning to open a resource center there July 14th. And we want everyone to be equally safe. In our journey to help the children, we have reported this to the police, and Lieutenant Brad Smith was in attendance when he heard the cries of the children. We have done stakeouts to document the children's concern. We contacted the public schools about the harassment. We contacted Robinson Transportation requesting the 4 buses that pass by the Salvation Army to add a stop so the children could get off there. They declined due to time and money. We researched all the crime in the vicinity. We studied the liquor licenses, which the ordinances, I gave you all copies of the ones that address this issue. We presented to you in November. We started the petition. We contacted the Liquor Review Board. We have researched the minutes on the passing of the liquor license sent by Gail Conrad, who, Ryan, are you here? You said that the license was issued in error, that the adjustment board should have approved it, not the liquor license. So we met with Ryan, we met with Scott Meyer, the city manager. We presented to the Board of Adjustment, who in fact voted 5-0 to revoke. Now, here we are again in front of you, trying to protect our children, which is a goal of the Neighborhood Development Initiative, NPI. So this is citizens taking a step. Now I'd like to address 5 points that we'd like to share about the ordinances. So if you would please refer to them. Ordinance 5-35, appeal by neighbor. Tom Meyer, did you all get Tom Meyer's letter that he opposed? On May the 1st, 2018, that letter was presented to the city. Tom, are you here? So since Tom is not available tonight, I'll summarize his letter. He owns He objects to renewing the liquor license at 341 South Sprigg. He's a property owner at 329 South Sprigg. He sees the violation of the city ordinance 5-39, standard of conduct, and ordinance 5-6, sales within 200 feet of a church. These violations were outlined in the petition. He has also been experiencing intoxicated individuals loitering and trespassing on his property, which is in violation of ordinance 5-14, possession, consumption in public, and ordinance 5-4, sale to habitual drunkards. 329 South Sprigg is a neighbor and within 200 feet of 341 South Sprigg, which meets the ordinance appeal by neighbor, ordinance 5-35. My second item concerning ordinance 5-6.
Your time. You need to wind it up, please.
Okay. I ran the crime report off of the police crime map. Here are pictures of 2008 where they're still loitering. And you all have a copy of and yes, some people do not live in Ward 2, but they hang out there. And so people who found in Ward 2 signed the petition.
It's not that the people in the ward that hang out there, it was the people that wasn't in the ward. The other thing is, the picture that you just showed, it has nothing to do with outlet, it's across the street. And the other.
The very first one.
Right, the first picture, so that, I mean, to show that picture and try to show that outlet has something to do with that picture is incorrect. And then to get signatures that are people that don't live in the ward and they make a statement that they don't want outlet in the ward and they don't even live in the ward, they never have lived in the ward, it's unfair. So, but
the petition, it's all about safety for the children
Mhm.
and the ordinances that are being violated.
But there's no ordinance being violated. Even though there's an ordinance stating this or that, it's not being violated.
If you look at ordinance 5-6, that one is being violated. If you look at the standard of conduct, 5-39, that one is being violated.
So would you say that all of the businesses that have alcohol could be in violation? If just because people standing around? First of all, there's no evidence in the picture that says that those men that's sitting there had violated the youth. If you had pictures where you had evidence of showing some type of violation, then that would be fair, but that shows nothing.
I did
And
ask the children and their parents to
Did you see-
file a police report,
Mhm.
and they were all too afraid.
But that's what I'm trying to say, is word of mouth. There's no witnesses for that. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm not, it's just the fact that to target a business because of an incident that nobody saw with their own eyes, then to use that as a platform to destroy a business. Now,
We're not asking for the outlet to shut down.
yes, you are.
We're asking for them to not sell alcohol. They can think outside the box and sell something else.
Thank you very much.
Well, I know. Well, my voice is.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm Ramona Bailey. I live at 1433 Kingsway. And I was here at June 7th meeting and I was very conflicted. I mean, I felt like I heard her say it was about the children. Of course, we don't want anything to happen to the children, black or white, it doesn't matter. And one of the things was she said she went to the school board or the buses, Robinson Transfer, to see if they could just, alleviate them having to walk past the riffraff and just be dropped off there at the Salvation Army, and their excuse was money and time. And I mean, I think the pressure could be put on them for that, because I've lived on both sides. I've lived in Ward 2 and where I'm living now. And I know the bus stops in Ward 2 are very, 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 very minimal. And on my street alone, I know there's about 5 stops. So I'm willing to say if they take out one of the stops on Kingsway and add it over there, I'm pretty sure the children will be okay. So that could be one of the safety concerns for the kids. And being within the 200 feet of church, I'm kind of confused on that. Is that an option of, if the church is okay with it, then you can do it. If the church is not okay, then you can't. I'm kind of confused on that. I won't jump in there because I know, there's different establishments that sell alcohol that are within 200 feet of churches. So is that up to the church discretion or this, how does that?
Right.
The Missouri state statute authorizes cities to prohibit the issuance of liquor licenses if they are within either 100, 200, or 300 feet of a school or church. Years gone by, it used to be that you had to, the exception to that would be you could get the permission of the school or church, and courts have decided that that was an unconstitutional delegation of legislative authority. And so because of that, our cities have had to change their ordinances to set up a board of adjustment or some other agency that would grant an exception on behalf of the city. And so the city of Cape Girardeau's ordinance is the 200-foot rule, and the city has established the board of adjustment to be the board that would consider whether permission would be granted to a business that was within that location. Now, the 200 feet is, I think, from door to business, building to building. And also, it has to be a church building that is built and constructed as a church building that was there beforehand and didn't come to a location close to the liquor establishment after it had been established already.
Okay. Well, I mean, that kind of is neither here nor there, since the business was already there before the man took over. So that kind of, I don't know how that would work, but
The church was there.
the church was there. Okay. Well, I mean, that sales was there. I'm born and raised in Cape Girardeau. I'm pretty sure.
Been there forever.
That was,
There's been stuff on that corner.
for.
That sell alcohol for years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Some
sold
sold
alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Across the street on the same corner, right across the street, that's where the alcohol was.
Okay, my last point that I was making a few notes and then I might have something else to say after this. But the loitering part, just maybe a suggestion for the business owners, and hopefully they can continue to do it. And maybe for SNAP too also, maybe, or not SNAP, but, maybe set up some places where, you don't want to just say, okay, we're about welcoming crime and stuff like that, but look out in front of Burritoville, in front of Stevie's, and these people, they're sitting out in public and they're drinking, and maybe it looks bad, people be sitting on the ground drinking or whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying, maybe put some stuff out there and say, sit down. If y'all want to be out here that bad, we're gonna make somewhere for you. You can sit. Don't harass people. That's not a good thing. But as far as SNAP coming into that community, it just seems like we could all get along and try to work out something that develop a relationship with these people. So if crimes should come about, they can say, hey, we can go over here to the SNAP people. We develop a relationship with them so we don't feel like, but I hope, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Don't just come and say like, hey, y'all need to stop selling liquor or clothes or anything, but come in and develop relationships so we can build community and not, destroy stuff.
Right.
When this was brought to our attention, at the Salvation Army Church, we're being a voice for the children. Now, and that was very alarming. The thing about the city council is that is your city ordinance. And so when the children brought that, we looked it up, and that's how we knew it. Now, it happened in 2013 when you made it. So I don't know why you made it in 2013, that 200 feet from the church, that it was changed at that time. So the smoke shop across the street was already there, and then they said 1993 or 1994. So that will not be involved in it since it was made before you changed your own city ordinance in 2013. And that's what you have to look at. This is what you put up and made that change. And so you have to abide by your own. Like it was said, you guys made a mistake. So with you want an accident to happen. So you want to stop the accident before it do happen. So it that was what's going on, all the loitering, all the drinking, all the open beer, all that, when the children was going to an after school program. And this is what brought it to our attention. And we just want you to follow your own city ordinance.
Scott?
Pastor Scott Johnson with Soulful Harvest Ministries here in Cape. Live at 605 Southwest End Boulevard. Just wanted to say right off the bat, I agree with the councilwoman. If you're going to stop one from selling alcohol, you may as well do it for all of them. I mean, there's a church right next to a liquor store right next to it in his image. And if you shut that down, guess what? They're going to go right down the street to Rhodes or wherever it is they can get alcohol. The problem, my personal opinion, I think what the problem is, I'm not discounting what the ladies are saying. I've never seen those guys bother the kids because from what I know of being here 50 years, most of the guys that are hanging out, they know the kids that come by. I'm not saying that they're not bothering or harassing those kids. I've never seen it. I'm just saying, and a lot of times these same guys, and I'm speaking on behalf of some of them, these same guys are the very ones that when we need stuff done around the church or around the community, we can't even go to our own people that should be supporting us. We go to the very guys that are sitting on the street or sitting on the side of the curb having a drink or something like that. It's all in about how you receive them. I can't say this young man is the problem for what's been going on in this community that's been going on since I've lived here, and it's gotten worse in the past. I do agree that there's a few times I've gone around the corner walking with my 4-year-old, and you go and there was people laying in the parking lot, clothes and stuff. I'm like, what is this? This looks like a scene out of a movie, a ghetto scene. Literally, that's what I've said. However, do you see that every day? Of course not. Anytime you have anything that comes into the community that's going to affect the mindset of people, we're talking about people who are already impoverished and oppressed. It doesn't matter what color they are. But anytime you bring anything such as alcohol, which is a depressant, I've been in the substance abuse field for over 25 years. I know how that works. But anytime you bring in anything negative that's oppressing people, nobody wants that. But if you are going to allow it for one, or a whole group of them, again, why, like you say, why target one? The bigger problem is way beyond this. I'm like you. I don't think liquor stores should be in the community in general. I could care less about that, but that's a business that they chose. We have a lot of people who made up their mind to get into certain businesses about the community, but it needs to be where, what is it? What are the liquor stores putting money back into the community? Are they hiring the people? If they're selling more than liquor, are they hiring the people that live in the community? What are you putting back into the community? That's the real question. Because if you're just bringing something in that's destroying people, that's only making a bad problem worse. It's making a bad problem worse. But as far as saying, well, yeah, you can have a liquor license, but you can't. You can, but you can't. It's just not right. But the overall thing is, well, how do we approach that? You're never going to stop people from drinking. It's not going to happen, no matter how hard. But we do know that drinking plays a role in crime. I don't see the kids being harassed. I'm literally related to 90% of the black people in Cape. I don't see the kids being harassed. All I'm saying is like, what do we really go from here? Because what I see is if you can't, when you get people that can't make $1 off of impoverished people, they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with them. These same people that we're talking about, you're homeless and you're this and you're that and you're this. Well, if we can't make $1 off of them, now you're a problem. Now you're a nuisance. That's not that man's problem. People have a mindset to do whatever they want, and we're not going to stop them. We're not going to stop them. But what we can, I agree with what Mona said earlier. If they're going to be out there, create a space for them to be decent about what they do. You can have your building be as beautiful as you want, but it's the outside. We need things that need to build up our community. I don't want to walk with my fiance and my children around and see people sitting out and all this. We're trying to build our community up. And all of this needs to stop at some point, man. It's like if we can't make $1 off of poor people or people living in poverty, we don't want to deal with it. But if we can use them, we need to keep them there. This is a problem that happened way before this young man came into the community. This is way beyond that. And if he gets a liquor license or don't get a liquor license, that's between you all and him. But he is not the problem. The problem goes a lot deeper than what we're saying. And we always talk about the kids. We ride around all the time, all through the night. We got a team of people that go through this neighborhood and they're checking on people and watching them while they're asleep and checking on these kids. And I don't see people harassing kids. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. That's a very serious accusation to make. Yeah. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. That's not that man's problem. Actually, don't just sell alcohol, put a grocery store in. We need one of those when the other stores are closed.
Thank you, Scott.
Everybody here understand, and I think they do, but I'd like an affirmance from everybody that there's another liquor store right across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any drunkards or whatever that are harassing these children, we don't know where they imbibe. But everybody understands that we're not talking about taking liquor out of this neighborhood. I mean, there's one directly across the street. They're just going to walk across the street and get it from someplace else. The other thing is this liquor license is not permanent. This isn't something that if you make a decision tonight, it's going to be carved into granite and cannot be reviewed. Every year it gets renewed. Anytime the crime statistics change and it becomes more of a nuisance, there can be rescission proceedings. And so, this isn't something that you have to decide finally tonight. Is the man a problem now? And can he continue until there is a bigger problem?
Again, I want to reiterate that if this council decides to reverse the board's decision, that does not mean he gets a liquor license. It has to go through administrative process by city code. We're just giving city officials a chance to review the total situation and go from there. One more. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ashley Hope. I live next to the place. I don't know where all these statistics coming up, but I hear gunshots a lot. Sometimes I have to wait until it's all over with before I go out and see what's going on. So, and the people, I don't know where these 300 and some signatures came in. You say the ones in the neighborhood didn't sign those. Well, where these other 300 some signatures came from saying they wanted it there? That's what I want to know, where they came from.
It came when they went to found out that he had been targeted to take his license. Then they took upon themselves
in the neighborhood.
In the neighborhood. Now, the petition that went around, the people names on there, the majority of them don't even live in the ward, so they don't even know the flavor or the culture of that ward. And they just saying, okay, no, we don't want no store there. But then if they lived in the ward, then they will understand why the store is there.
That live in the ward. You said more people that live in the ward say they want it there than want it.
Yeah,
I would like to know who they are.
Well, you have to get the one from the city. I guess it's open to the public. I don't know, but you have to get the one from that they started on their own and calling and doing their thing.
Because I mean, I'm not averse to somebody having a business, but when you can't control what's going on there, and I know for a fact there's been shots over a lot.
Now,
don't know about
shots,
nobody else.
okay, you,
Even up in the drive-through.
okay,
So what's going on, the reason they're shooting up in there?
okay, now you say you heard shots, but you didn't go out and see what, who was
The
shooting?
police came, they called the police and it was over there. So.
That's not that
I'm
part
just
of, I'm
saying-
not gonna
I'm just
dispute you,
saying-
but I'm just saying.
I'm just saying, if you don't live there, it's easy for you to say, well, oh yeah, he should have. a
That's what I'm
license.
trying to say.
You know.
If you don't live in the
And I don't
ward,
mind them having,
I'm
if
not
they don't clean
disputing
up
you.
that,
Uh-huh.
the people next, across the street,
Mhm.
they stop them from loitering and stuff over there. So
I'm
it
just
don't say
saying.
that you can't do that.
Okay,
And he ain't
I'm
responsible for his property.
He is responsible for his property, true. And if he's doing everything that he's supposed to do, according to what the police department has suggested, and any other person that's got wisdom
But then he needs
suggesting to come in to
call-
say,
He needs to call them and loiter.
right, but to come in to say, well, we want him gone because the people that's on his property are harassing the kids, but we have no evidence.
So I guess the kids are lying.
I'm not saying the kids are lying. I'm saying evidence. If your child came in your house and told you,
I mean,
wait a minute, but if a child came in the house and told you the dog bit him, and then there's no evidence of being bit, would you say, what would you say?
How can you prove?
That's what I'm saying. How
That's
could
not
you-
necessarily
This is going nowhere right now.
Thank you.
I think the owner wants to say something.
Do I have my 5 minutes or whatever?
You're just arguing back and forth. We're not hearing anything new.
5 minutes.
We have not hearing anything new, and I said that before. If I'm not going to hear anything new, we'll hear from somebody else.
Did you
And I
hear
think
about shots?
this gentleman deserves a chance to speak.
There are abandoned buildings on that area and right across our store, and people stand there, like we can, sometimes they walk across the street and sit there and we call the police or sometimes by ourselves about, they sit over there and they are, so it's not because of us. We are not like sheltering them. There are buildings in that area. It's the problem of that whole area. They are hurting our business. It's not we are inviting them and letting them sit. But there's so much we can do. We can call the police and we can't even call the police all the time. Because we take out the phone and then they walk across the street. And then police come, they see go on, there's no trespassing. But I have called multiple times, but I'm not calling them all the time. But there's so much we can do.
Yes.
Sharon Braun, Community Counseling Center and SNAP. Nobody likes to see a business close. And after the last session, I talked with, yes. And I shared with him, I wish that there was another answer. I didn't like this. And I told him, I said, if I had $1 million, I would give it to you so that your convenience store could remain open. And I would. One question that I have, of the 268 individuals who called in, who is to say that some of those, maybe a lot of those, maybe none of those, maybe a few, are the individuals who don't want the convenience store to close so that they can continue to have the liquor. So I just hope, this will go where it's going to go. It's not an easy issue. And I don't know. I do remember that at the last session, there was one of the council members who said, this is a city issue. Perhaps it's not solely a convenience store issue. And with everything that's been said and the prevalence of this, it's not just there at SNAP. I've been there. I've seen during the daytime, people who have had too much to drink walking back and forth. Our resolution, part of that is we recognize this. And when we are in that building for services during the daytime, We want to have programs to try to bring these people in and to make a difference that way. So there are a lot of answers to this issue. I just hope that we come to the right decision and maybe a compromise. I don't know. It's just very hard. Very hard.
Yes,
Shelley.
Yeah.
How, when you said.
would you come up to the mic, please, and identify yourself?
My name is Angela Lee, and I live at 210 South Pacific Street in Cape Girardeau. I'm in Shelley Moore's ward, Ward 2. But I wanted to ask you, how far did you, when you said when you went down there and they were not harassing anybody, what time of the day did you go down there?
Right before school let out, because I wanted to make sure that I was
To
there
see
when
the
they got.
kids?
Yeah, to see
Well, I
the
just
kids.
wanted to say, I went to the SNAP meeting last Tuesday, and I'm not a child, and I was harassed. I didn't call the police, and the reason I didn't call the police is they wasn't harassing me enough to really call the police. Now, we have an alcohol problem in this United States. We have an alcohol problem in Cape Girardeau. Alcohol became legal a long time ago, and now we have a bunch of alcoholics. Now, I may not be able, or SNAP may not be able to change everything around Cape Girardeau, all the alcohol places, but they could start with this one. And they start with this one because it's 200 feet of the Salvation Army, and something needs to be done. We may not be able to solve all the alcohol problems at Snooks and all the other stores, but I have walked up and down Spirit Street, and I have been harassed from the people. And so it has to start somewhere. And I agree with the fact that SNAP is trying to do something about it. And they can start by not giving him his liquor license. Have a nice day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Lily Braden. I live at 1124 South Ellis. And I think it is morally wrong for you guys to try to close the liquor store. The whole time that he spent and all the money that he spent building that store, renovating that store, you guys already knew the position that he was going to be in. So why let someone spend so much money to get this business going to turn around and take it back from him? And he had nothing to do with the loitering, because before he opened up his store, they were doing the same thing across the street at the smoke shop. You know, the exact same thing. Now, I go through there every day, almost 24 hours a day, because I just drive. I've never even seen a child in that area around the store, because there's not that many kids that live in that particular area. It's not that many kids, and the bus would not stop close to his store. So I think a lot of these things are lies and false accusations. And I think he should retain his liquor license. Thank you.
The one thing I want to say, and before we started, I really was against granting it, and I know we're not, but let me finish. And when I'm thinking, and we brought up a good point, you know, this was Don's store 25, 30 years ago, when I was much younger and had hair.
That long ago.
Yeah, that long. And, you know, and here, I kind of go back. We talked about in 2013, and I want to talk about that. You know, before then, it was 50 feet or whatever it was. It wasn't, when I owned a bar, you couldn't have it within 75 feet. So in 2013, it got expanded. I don't know, Eric, just whatever the thing was. She said it would change in 2013.
No, the change in 2013 was the difference that I indicated about the approval being granted by the church or school or by the Board of Adjustment.
Okay.
That's the only thing that happened in
So
2013.
it's been an establishment there for years and years and years. And I get it. I've flip-flopped on this. I think we need to go back and let staff look at it again and not go with the Board of Adjustments. And it's a business owner. I get it. There's one across the street. They're gonna be there. It sounds like Ramona and that there has been benefit to the community. That's my 2 cents. And I've changed. I've heard every side of it and I get it, but it is what it is.
Again, I want to reiterate that if this council votes to rescind, or reverse the board's decision, that does not mean he gets a liquor license. It still has to go through the staff review process by city code. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
What's the motion?
To,
Clarify.
oh, sorry.
Clarify,
Retain or deny or change the denial.
change the denial. So
Reverse the denial.
I'll get it out.
We haven't had a motion yet.
That's the motion.
I move that we reverse the Board of Adjustments.
By reversing, do I have a second? Any discussion? And
Second.
again, I will say, by reversing the Board of Adjustments opinion, it goes to city staff to review this process, who usually does that anyway. City council does not grant liquor license. That's done administratively by city staff. All this does is take it to city staff and let them review the process as it should be done.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we know why the board or the license, it was a unanimous vote to revoke the license, correct?
it's in the, it's in
I
the.
thought it was 5-0. Was there some kind of ruling on that or statement or?
It's in the.
It's in there. It was,
Board of Adjustments minutes on why they,
it's primarily because it was within 200 feet of the church.
I mean, basically the staff findings were that it was in 200
It was
feet of the
violating
church.
that. Because there's language here that we've, in section 539, that talks about renewing or suspending or revoking or suspending if a business is operated in such a manner that it is a nuisance or they don't, I guess, keep the area free of litter and they allow a gathering places, outside for customers or whatever. So and hearing from the police chief, generally this establishment is not considered to be any kind of outlier or any kind of worse establishment than others in town. Is that, or more, allowing more criminal activity or?
I mean, I see what you're saying.
Yep.
It's not like Chief Blair has said that this place is the worst place in the south of our town.
Yeah, and maybe what I'm getting at too is generally why are liquor licenses revoked? Is it because of this type of thing or is it because?
Usually it's because of violence. It's because of repeated violations of selling to minors. It's because of lots of different situations. There could be a number of things that would cause somebody to revoke a liquor license.
Right, thank you.
Right.
There's a
Yes.
There's a
huge
difference.
difference.
Yes, gotcha, thank you, okay. But primarily, it's the whole spacing issue that caused the,
I mean, quite frankly, Eric, cover me, as far as being legal. I mean, quite frankly, if this had never sold and Don still owned it, there'd still be alcohol there. And it would have been continued.
Don didn't have no shooting. He didn't have no water in either.
I don't know. I mean, we could also say the same.
I will,
We have a-
just to go back, we do have a process in place so that if there is a situation or a problem with a particular liquor license, we take recommendations from the chief of police and other departments that interact with these businesses. And on occasion, they do recommend suspension or revocation of a liquor license. And if it's warranted, then that action is taken. And that is appealable to the Liquor Review Board.
on the spot. I mean, you don't have to
No.
wait
Well,
a
there's a
whole year.
process.
Well,
I mean, right, no, there's a process.
Okay.
That is not anything to do with the renewal of the license.
Gotcha.
That is something that is based on a specific
It is
recommendation.
a whole process that if we overturn the board's decision, it will then go through the staff process to review it.
Gotcha.
And if it is,
And that's all we're doing.
and that's all we're doing.
We're not granting the liquor license. We're granting staff to review.
That's it.
Can I ask one more question? And this is for Mr. Glenn, my friend. I'm going to put you on the spot for just a moment over there.
No. I'm on the spot.
Has the school district discussed the busing issue?
I heard that mentioned earlier. To my knowledge, at the board level, we have not discussed that. That's something that may have been administratively, but I have already planned to have that conversation. See if we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any more discussion? If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. It will be reviewed by staff. It will continue through the administrative review process in accordance with city code. That concludes our business. I'll entertain a motion, we adjourn.
We do need a closed session.
I know we do.
Okay.
We have to adjourn first.
Just making sure.
Yes, we did. All those in favor say aye. We do need to have a closed session.
We do?
Yes, we do.
Very sure. Oh. Do we
To
have
discuss legal actions, litigation, confidential communications, legal counsel, and property transactions pursuant to revised section, Missouri Section 610021, 1 and 2.
Expect you guys to say.
It won't take long. They got a report on the property and another issue.
Mr. Mayor, we need a motion and a second.
What? We're gonna wait till Scott gets back.
Okay. That's reasonable.
I think that's appropriate.
That's a concern.
Yes.
Motion and a second.
Oh,
Motion and second.
motion and second for closed session.
Second.
All those in favor, aye. Aye.
I was like, why are you still here? I'm like, surely it's not that riveting.
I lean back. I'm gonna sit at dinner Saturday night, I lean back after dinner. Metal chairs.
I just feel like